first question for you guys today, which is harder for someone to learn? A specific industry domain, subject matter expertise in that industry, in the market, or product management? And John, I'm going to start with you on this one because you talked about teaching product management to people. Let me get your take. What's harder?
I mean, I've obviously had to learn product management at some point, and I've had to learn a bunch of industries / domains. I think it is easy to learn, uh, relatively easy to learn base level product management. I think it is really hard to learn great product management, to like be good at prioritizing, to be good at saying no, to figuring out the right things to not do and all that. I think that's super hard, and I'm not even sure if it's teachable. Um, I think some industries are like really, really complicated and have a lot of interdependencies and are, can be frustrating in that way for certain people. But I think it's ultimately, I think you can learn any industry given enough time and appetite for learning.
I would argue if you have those good to great product management skills, you can learn any industry, right? Because
Yeah,
it's about the inquiry, it's about the empathy, it's about the journalistic type things that Jason was talking about. I've gone
I
into new
I do want
industries
to do
and
a good versus great topic of the week one day. That would be really fun.
uh, we will put that in queue. And I know Greg's got some stuff he's been adding to the queue too. But we figured we'd get through 2020 with some more softballs, and then we can go into some of the deeper dives. But no, I found that what made my success is I could go into a new industry, go talk to customers, do the research and analysis, and in 90 days be the person who knows more about the industry than the people who've been product managers there for 10 years, right? And so it's all about having that base level skill of how do you go ask questions and listen and look for trends and everything we talked about at the beginning. Greg, what's your take on this?
I agree with that. So that great product management is more difficult to learn. I think that so many industries are very arrogant that you can't possibly understand my industry or my domain. It's just you have to be in it in order to learn it, to be effective, all those things. And I find that that's exceptionally arrogant. But as you said, Grant, it's like if you have the product management skills, and you actually can go in, you can learn all this stuff very quickly, just by asking the right questions and kind of having that like outsider look into what's going on within the industry helps a lot.
Yeah.
Helps move that company faster into a specific area. Otherwise, they just stay pigeonholed. As I said, we're not building buggy whips, but you know what? We could make a faster buggy whip.
Yeah.
And you need the product managers to kind of sit back and go, wait a minute, is that really what we want? Is that really where we need that our customers need to go? Is they need a faster buggy whip? Or do we actually need to transform how we actually work? And let's talk to what the customers need within that industry, whether it's healthcare or finance, or it just goes on and on. But as John said, there are some that are super complicated. But it's just given time.
Yeah. When teaching product management, we used to talk about how the market's moving up into the right, I think is the way we put it. And if you're not following that movement, right, technology is changing, their domains are changing, understanding the value chains, right, upward, upstream and downstream, to understand how that's impacting what's going on and how market dynamics and maturity are impacting those things is critical. But it's interesting because the same problem that a founder, CEO of a once successful company who's now in a growth rut is the same exact problem that a product manager who hasn't listened to their customer in 5, 10 years as well.
Well, I mean, if you just look at the technology trends, I mean, come on, iPhone came out in 2007. Really? I mean, it's like the world is changing very, very, very quickly. Cloud computing, all those, and the details behind cloud computing and how advertising is working and how do I actually communicate healthcare? All those things are moving very, very, very quickly.
Yep.
So the key behind all of that is, the industry is accelerating in multiple different directions, but product management foundations behind that stay very, very stable. And that part, that's why I said that I think that, I agree with John, is I think that the foundations of great product management is harder to do.
That's going to be the topic of the week. That title right there. I think the foundations of great product management. That'll be on the slate for the first quarter. Jason, was your background always supply chain and purchasing before you got to your current
No.
job?
Yeah, it kind of happened all at once. I was a technology project manager, and through M&A, ended up having to be a director of product management and also learning the industry at the same time.
Yeah.
So, and I would, so thinking about hiring, because that's kind of what we're talking about, even though it kind of leans that product management is maybe, especially the great product manager, harder to teach. I don't know if I would bring in somebody, or even if the domain is even harder to learn, I don't know if I would bring in somebody with so much domain expertise because of all the bias they have. You know, innovation happens with ignorance and naivety. And if you're trying to grow your products, having somebody ask the obvious dumb questions as a product manager can be a great way to spark interest. Greg, you were just talking about this, like you can just be in it for too long. You know, you get burnout and you get into your custom ways and you just know how everything works. You become a product historian, but you're not necessarily leading the way for growth in your market. And I think that, you know, it might take longer to learn that domain, but in that time that you're learning that domain, you're asking some really interesting questions and looking at everything from a different perspective.
And you can find subject matter experts within that business. You know,
to help that
we talked
person.
about that in the past. You're actually trying to find those subject matter experts across that business in order to increase your specific knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Jason, you had to do both at once, right? Learn a new industry and learn in product management. Which one was harder for you, do you think?
I'm still learning the industry, and I don't know if I'll ever be a great product manager.
Both. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I would say the industry, absolutely, because as a project manager, you know, I kind of got my MBA in project management. A lot of the same kind of process orientation and skills associated with following a process and just moving that to a different type of process were already kind of in place for repeatability. But the domain itself was a little bit trickier. Not that it's one of those tricky domains like we have discussed. It's very simplistic, but still, that was probably the harder part.
Steve, as somebody who teaches more, has probably taught more people product management than almost anybody. What's your take?
Well, you know, I was going to say it's harder to teach domain than product management, except, you know, I really do embrace so it's a yes and here, right? It's I embrace a lot of the things that other people have said. You know, there are a lot of people teaching rudimentary product management, which is, you know, pretty easy to learn. But it occurred to me in this discussion that hiring managers aren't looking for a product manager. They're looking for a subject matter expert. You know, it's another one of those I'm confused about what I'm shopping for problems. So if they say, I want somebody with 5-10 years experience in our domain because we're unique and special and different than everyone else, what they're really saying is we want somebody to come in with all of his opinions formed and can immediately start writing white papers and ebooks and, you know, doing thought leadership stuff. But I like John. I've learned many industries. In fact, I have a buddy. This is kind of wild. I had a buddy who has had who had every place he's gone gets a non-compete clause forced upon him, and yet and as a result, every job he's taken has been in a new industry. And so he's, in the course of 20 years, had become a knowledgeable person in 5 different industries. So it can be learned, and or 7
Greg's
from the case of Greg.
you.
All right, but you know, I just thought that was a really interesting way out of a non-compete clause. It's like, I'm going to do the same thing I did in automotive. I'm just going to go over and do it in personal computing instead, or so anyway, that was our big ramble. I think the issue is that we look for deep domain expertise when we're looking not so much for a product manager, but a subject matter expert. And a great product manager is constantly learning about the nuances of whatever industry or domain they serve.
Yeah, I want to add on to that a little bit because you sparked some ideas in my head,
Yes,
and adding
and.
on is what we do.
Yeah.
It's a big plus is our new logo. The way Google hires product managers is actually just like the opposite of what you were just saying. They hire product managers who can be good product managers, who have the skills to be a product manager without regard for actual industry expertise. And in fact, you're expected at Google to change teams multiple times in your career at Google. From, I know people who have gone from ads to Gmail or to YouTube or to internal tools or, self-driving cars or health. Like there's so many different industries, domains you can be a part of and still stay at Google. And people are happy to hire you with zero expertise in that domain, as long as you're a good product manager.
Cool.
And that's actually very mature of that company. That's an
Yeah.
extremely mature thing to do. And Steve, going back to what you were saying in the beginning of like filling out a job description, is that the highest thing that shows up is domain expertise, and then product management is kind of like lower in the priority list. And I've seen that so many times. And when I talk to recruiters, I'm like, listen, I understand the industries I'm in. Got it. Totally get it. I need some people that are really good at these areas. And oh, by the way, if they had, some of the domain knowledge from another company, that would be great. But I don't need someone to come in and yes me. I'm not looking for that.
Did we just all talk around and agree that our skills of product management are what the big differentiator is? I almost feel like we're saying, hey, being able to do what we do, gosh, that's hard, but look at the differentiation it brings. So
We may be biased. It's true.